Hi, I'm EAC Commissioner Ben Hovland. Throughout March, the EAC will be featuring interviews with women election officials as part of the celebration for Women's History Month. Today, I'm joined by Cathy Darling Allen, who has served as the County Clerk and Registrar of Voters for Shasta County, California since 2004. Welcome, Cathy. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Commissioner.
Happy to. To start off, can you tell us a little bit more about Shasta County?
Sure. Shasta County is located halfway between the Oregon border and Sacramento. So that means we are what we think of as the true Northern California. A lot of times people think of San Francisco as Northern California, but that's actually 4 hours by driving to the south of us. So we are our county seat has about 100,000 people. We have about 112,000 registered voters in the county. And we have a ton of recreation available. We're at the very top of the Central Valley of California. So that means we have Mount Shasta to the north and Mount Lassen to the east. And of course, a mountain range to the west to get over to the coast. So we have tons of fishing. We have a beautiful lake, Lake Shasta, and another man-made lake as well, Whiskey Town Lake, that are great for recreation. Houseboating on Lake Shasta is a long time tradition for lots of folks all around the North State, not just here locally, but we have folks that come from all over the country actually to houseboat on the lake. And it's just really God's country that we love. I love living here. I love serving the community.
Well, to anyone who hasn't been there, I can say as someone who has visited Shasta County, it's a great place. So get out there. But back to the conversation at hand. Again, we're talking to folks who, of course, work in the election community. Can you talk a little bit about your career in public service, how it began, and whether you've had any women who were mentors or role models during your career?
Sure. Thanks so much. I went, well, let me start with my first role model, all of our first role models in some way or another, right? It was my mother. I grew up in Washington, D.C., and she was a librarian at a community college outside of town, but was very politically active in town. She walked people through the halls of Congress to explain how to lobby and how to get better library legislation passed. She was president for a time of her professional association, the Maryland Library Association, and just really provided a model for me of a working mother, which I continue to be today. I went to college here in California at University of California in Santa Barbara, and had a variety of jobs and a variety of mentors at those jobs, mainly in customer service. And then when I got out of school and started a family, I really wanted to serve my community. I was not really interested in working to make somebody else a dollar, right? I really wanted to serve my community and participate in the government. And so I got a job here in Shasta County working at the welfare department. And not surprisingly, perhaps, that is a department that employs mainly women, just like the elections field. It's predominantly female. And I had some really amazing folks that I worked with in that department. And then, of course, my predecessor here in elections in Shasta County, the former county clerk, Ann Reed, who was also president of our professional association when she hired me, and is an amazingly upright, upstanding, and hard worker. And I have, throughout my career, I have met in elections, I've met other election officials who just provided amazing examples. Dina de Beauvoir, of course, is a well-known figure, and I've only met her a handful of times, but I have been so inspired by listening to her and her presentations over the years. So, I mean, I could go on, but I won't.
There's an embarrassment of riches in this space, and
absolutely.
The challenges of the last couple of years, while they've been tough, have been a reminder of the amazing people that work in this space and sort of all the support that the community has for each other. So, the EAC is celebrating its 20th and the 20th anniversary of the Help America Vote Act this year, and sort of reflecting on how much has changed over the last 20 years. You know, with over 15 years of experience as a county clerk, you've seen a lot of that. You know, what would you say are some of the most significant changes you've seen in the elections field in your career?
So when I started in elections in Shasta County, we had, first of all, a much lower number of registered voters, under 90,000. So we've grown just in voters over that time period quite a bit locally. But the thing that's most striking is the number of people who vote by mail. In 2000 in Shasta County, we had 1,020 people who were permanently registered to vote by mail, and now we're over 75,000. And we did one mailing in the last 18 years, asking folks specifically if they wanted to be vote by mail voters, and that was in 2005. We haven't done any other outreach or encouragement. It's been an organic shift. And I think that's something we're seeing throughout the West, right? That's not unique to our county or even our state. So that shift from in-person, community-involved voting to vote by mail has been, I think, one of the biggest changes that we've seen. And that's not unique to us, but it's certainly been a big change.
Yeah, I know, you know, in 2020 with the pandemic and everybody sort of acting surprised at or you know, some of the rhetoric around vote by mail. Of course,
right.
We got to the Election Administration and Voting Survey, or EVE survey, and I don't know how many times I talked about, well, you know, about 25% of Americans voted this way in 2016, and of course,
right.
That increase of course, a record in 20 with the pandemic, but again, I think mail ballots are here to stay.
As you say, there has been a lot of messaging around this, what feels to some people apparently like a new phenomenon, but it really isn't new, especially in the western part of the U.S. Vote by mail is something that we've done and done well for a long, long time.
Absolutely. Well, you know, thinking about some of the things that you've been able to do in your office, some of the changes or initiatives that you've implemented during your time, obviously the increase in mail is one of those, but can you talk about some of those other efforts that you're proud of?
Yes, some of them are things that we decided to do. And then there's, of course, a whole laundry list of other things that were decided for us. Changes in technology, right? When I started in this office in 2003 as the assistant county clerk, it was in June. And if you recall, we had a governor's recall election, a gubernatorial recall that year as well as last year. And we had just literally signed the contract. My predecessor just signed a contract for new electronic voting machines. We had been a punch card county previously. So I was there when the 18-wheeler truck drove up to the back of the office and unloaded $2 million worth of electronic voting machines. And then in 2007, we had a new Secretary of State elected, and California, as you're aware, has extremely high standards now for voting technology, and that all started in 2007 with the top to bottom review that was conducted out of the Secretary of State's office. And so we had those electronic voting machines that we then had to add a VPAT to, right? And add 22 additional seals to every machine that went out to a precinct. So implementing those programs and really increasing the security of elections for our voters here locally was always paramount. But we've done some other things over the years that I'm really proud of. Just recently, in the last 5 years, we've participated in a couple of different pilot projects for risk limiting audits. We've also participated in a program with the National States Geographic Information Council. They're geo-enabled elections or GIS-enabled elections, and it's been a huge help to us to, again, it's a security improvement and a process improvement that we know where every single voter is on the map, and we can double check all that mapping data against our voter registration database data, which means people get correct ballots, right? So that's a project I'm really proud of and was absolutely instrumental in helping us get through the redistricting process this year, which was particularly tough because census data was delayed. As you probably are well aware, we got census data about 8 months later than we normally would. And then here locally, we also had an election in February, a small local election. And so that really added a lot of stress to our timeline for getting redistricting done. But what we've tried to do over the years is to meet voters where they are, to judge where it is that our voters here locally, regardless of what the movement of the state is, you know, as we said, Shasta County is north of Sacramento. We're not Los Angeles. We are not San Francisco. Our demographics are very different in those communities. And so we want to make sure that we are serving our voters in the way they want to be served. And one of the things that's we've noticed, and we try and we've tried very hard to respond to, is the rise in vote by mail, but we still have a very vocal core constituency of thousands of voters who want to vote in person. And so we really want to continue to offer that service to voters, and we want to have the flexibility in our state law. And so we lobby for that every chance I get, to continue to be allowed to offer that in-person voting experience in the local precincts as opposed to vote centers. Vote centers work really well for some communities, and we applaud that and applaud that innovation where it works. But our community, we strongly feel, wants to vote in person in their local precinct. And so we've made a real effort to continue that while adopting reforms that make sense. Ballot drop boxes are a great thing. We installed our first drop box in Shasta County in 2012. And we're now up to about 16 different drop boxes around the county, which we believe is a wonderful service for voters. There has been an unfortunate rhetoric around the post office and mail delivery. We have an excellent relationship with our local post office, and they've done a wonderful job for our voters. But we do understand that there are people who still have doubts. And so we hope that the Dropbox program helps to allay those concerns.
Yeah, and I think, you know, you hit the nail on the head in there on just, you know, meeting voters where they are. That customer service piece that, you know, always stands out to me as what good, you know, I say a lot that to me, good election administration is about good governance and customer service. And you know, certainly, you know, a lot of what you're saying there resonates. And, you know, I think as we look at that and, you know, look, again, the field is changing. It's always changing. It seems like each election brings its own unique issues. But as we're looking, you know, now we're in 2022, we're in another federal election year. And so what are some of the notable changes that you'd like to see in elections?
Let's see. I think that one of the biggest challenges we're facing right now, and this isn't really a change in elections necessarily, but disinformation, right? This is a problem that we have to, we need help. We need the academic community, we need the nonprofit community, we need community-based organizations helping us address these issues, addressing this bad information, and helping to quash it, and helping to amplify good information and good official information that comes from local election officials all over the country. And I'm not quite sure how we get there. One thing I'm really pleased and gratified to see is so much research happening on the academic side, and in some of the nonprofits as well, to try and untangle what the situation that we all find ourselves in today. I think that funding is a huge issue for election departments all over the country. You know, not having the basic tools you need to provide that good customer service and communication with voters is really problematic. And I would love to see sustained regular maintenance funding from both the federal and the state level. Of course, I don't have a magic wand, but I really wish I did for that one. The other thing that I would really value is more research continuing. I mean, we have tons of research happening around elections all the time, but I think it's really, what would be really valuable is very neutral, nonpartisan research that can help us to make those data-driven decisions about how we serve voters. And that's California election officials, most of them are elected, most of us are elected, and it's a nonpartisan office. And I really think that is the way that it should be. I'm biased, right? California's doing it right. But I do believe that having so much partisanship involved in some states' elections processes is really not helping the situation we find ourselves in today, right? We want to be able to do the work of conducting elections, manage the mechanics of conducting elections without the partisan policy stuff kind of getting in the way. And again, if I had a magic wand, I need a fairy. I need an elections fairy to show up and help us figure this out.
Absolutely. All those things make a lot of sense. And I keep thinking about, obviously, so many folks all across the country are dealing with the misdis malinformation. Elections are chronically underfunded. And I keep thinking about, there's an intersection on that piece. I personally like our decentralized elections. I think that we get a lot of value out of it, but it makes it, harder on the communication end. And I think it emphasizes the work and investment we may need to do in voter education, in voter outreach. And so many times I think that ends up a little bit further on the back burner than we'd like because of the things that you have to pay for that are required in the law, et cetera. And so certainly a challenge. If the magic wand works out, I certainly hope it does. You could use those resources. Thinking about, I guess, again, we're certainly in a different place than when you started. We're in a different place than we were 2 years ago.
Right.
But what advice might you have, as a woman in elections, would you have for other women who may be interested in a career in elections or public service?
Well, it's a really tough time to come into elections right now. And every person who we hire, I think, is so brave to jump into this pool right now. It's really a tough space to be working in. And so one of the things we focused on a lot in our office recently, especially, is just self-care. Elections functions very differently than other county departments. And I've worked in other county departments. I say this with the voice of experience. Some people take county government jobs because they want to work 9 to 5, no overtime, good pension, and that's the end of it. Those people aren't successful in elections. If you want to work in elections, you have to have an excellent work ethic, an excellent integrity and backbone, but also you have to be able to take care of yourself and take care of your team. It's really important to make sure that folks get the time off that they need. We've had elections about every 6 months since 2017. We typically would have an off year in the odd years, but that has not happened for us in a long time. So we're really very focused on trying to take care of our staff and making sure that folks get the self-care that they need. At the same time, I don't say that to scare anybody off. Those of us who do this work love what we do. We are 100% invested in the success of every election, and in every, that's our project over and over again, right? But like you say, every election is different. It is never boring. It is an amazingly engaging, relevant thing. Lots of people don't know that we work more than 3 days a year, but that's okay. No news in election is good news. That's what we want. We want people to not even think about us until it's election day. We haven't had that luxury in a couple of years, as you say, but we did have it for quite a long time. And I look forward to a time when we can really engage and achieve some more trust with folks. Over time, it will take time to rebuild that trust with people. So dismayed at kind of some of the bad messaging that we're seeing, but for folks who want a career that will always give back in satisfaction, understanding of the importance of the work that we do. I come to work every day understanding that the right of franchise is the foundational right to, leads to all others. And if we don't protect it and administer it fairly and equitably, then we have a real problem in our country. And so I really, I mean, I would encourage anybody who is grinding the corporate, stone, or doing something that isn't really that satisfying. If you are willing to work hard and put time in, elections is a very satisfying, really gratifying career.
Well said. I certainly know that one of the highlights of my work as a commissioner is speaking with local election officials all around the country and recognizing the great work and the commitment that they have to that work and to our country and our democracy. And so I thank you, Cathy Darling Allen, for your work and that you continue to do to serve the voters of Shasta County, and for participating in this series for the EAC. Thank you.
It's been my honor. Thank you, Commissioner Hovland.